Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, sponsored by the National Health Association. And I'm delighted today to have as my guest Dr. Michael Klaper. Dr. Klaper truly is one of the true icons, and I don't throw that word around loosely, in the plant-based community. He is he's sought after as an international lecturer in plant-based healthcare and plant-based nutrition. He is an advisor to the Plantrition Project, which is a group of physicians, many physicians who are embracing the plant-based way of taking and providing healthcare. He is involved in a very important initiative now, which I hope we will talk about in terms of moving medicine forward, and we will get into a very important discussion about that. And I can go on and on, but I just want to welcome Dr. Michael Klaper. Hi. Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association, the oldest organization in the world championing the extraordinary benefits of a whole plant food diet and healthy lifestyle, as well as water-only fasting. We believe that health results from healthful living and focus on evidence-based science that promotes the health of you and your loved ones, as well as the health of all animals and the environment. We feature experts from a cross-section of disciplines within the plant nutrition, vegan, psychological, environmental, and animal compassion sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, the NHA's Director of Health Education.
Hey there, Frank. It's so good to see you. What a wonderful podcast. What a wonderful audience.
I know. I'm so happy that you're here. And I got to tell you, you just celebrated your 50th year as a physician. Oh my God. I mean, that is like, that makes you just pause and like reflect, because I mean, it's just a half a century. It's unbelievable to think about. You know what I mean?
Really? I graduated medical school in 1972 and 50 years went by. It's only 2022. I can't believe how
and
many
I like to tell people, like the country song, you've been doing this before it was cool. You know what I'm saying? So,
Indeed.
Well, let me jump in, because, one of the tenets of the National Health Association itself has always been health by healthful living, so that health is an outcome of the consequences of choices. And I love a line by Dr. Herbert Shelton, who was one of the founders. He said, you're free to make choices, but you're not free to choose the consequences. And the bottom line is you have embraced that health by healthful living. And what I want to start off with is this idea that, when we look at modern medical practice, aside from the brilliant life-saving surgeries and the remarkable emergency care that's provided, the bulk of day-to-day practice is really a model of disease management, not really true health care. And when we look at the fact that we're spending now close to $4 trillion on healthcare, and the major amount of that expenditure are on things like heart disease, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease. And these are things that even the health policy experts are stating are best resolved by routine, healthy lifestyle choices. So the question I want to pose to you is that as we move forward into creating a true healthcare model, why and how important is it when we talk about prevention and the recovery from these problems that we have as a foundation, whole food plant nutrition? Why does that need to be the foundation of that whole new model of healthcare?
Oh, my Frank, in that question, you posed, the main problem / paradigm of the entire medical establishment, and I must say it's abject failure to really help our society get healthier. And as you said, physicians are just wizards at acute care medicine. And if I had a professor who said, you can divide all of medicine into horizontal medicine and vertical medicine. And if you are so sick that you are horizontal on the gurney, if you are hurt or septic, you're flat. But modern medicine is just what you want. Boy, we're really good at that. But that's about 10% of all of medical issues and problems. If you are vertical, you're still walking around, but you've got high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, hypertension, etc. Modern medicine really doesn't know what to do for you, and it's embarrassing at this point for a discipline based on precision medical science. I mean, we can identify a genetic mismatch on gene A21 on chromosome 14 with precision. But the thought that cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas might be clogging up our patients' arteries, this somehow is too abstruse a subject for my colleagues to grasp. And it would be funny, and it's certainly embarrassing if it weren't so tragic when you think of the millions of people who die a needless death, the trillions of dollars you mentioned that are wasted in Band-Aid procedures after the disease is choking off arteries. It's a national tragedy on the highest level. And so, and as you said, underneath all this is our lifestyle, and deep under that, of course, is what we are running through our arteries every 4 hours, a standard American diet based on meats and dairies and oils and sugars and processed foods flowing through our arteries and every tissue in our body, hour after hour, day after day, month after month. It causes inflammation. It chokes off our arterial trees. We can talk about the pathophysiology, how it does it. But the science isn't that hard to understand. The analogy I use is like, if you've got a nice new sports car with a nice gasoline burning engine and you're pouring diesel fuel, kerosene into it, you can't be surprised when the spark plugs foul and the gas line clogs up and black smoke comes out the back and it runs rough and stops. Oh, my car has developed a disease. No, it hasn't. You've been using the wrong fuel in it. And you put the right fuel in, clean off the spark plugs, and runs great. Well, that's where the whole food plant-based diet comes in, to finally circle back to in your question here. I lecture the medical students across the country now and tell them, basically we are plant-eating hominids. We've got the same basic digestive system that our gorilla and bonobo cousins have. They're up in the trees eating leaves and fruit all day, a high carbohydrate diet. And they don't develop clogged arteries. They don't develop type 2 diabetes. They don't develop colitis. They don't develop these diseases. They're eating their natural foods. And we've got basically the same digestive system. And when we start eating a diet based on whole plant foods, lo and behold, our arteries clean out and the artery walls relax and the high blood pressure comes down and the joints stop hurting and the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing so much and the migraine headaches get better and the insulin receptors clear out and the diabetes gets better and they turn into normal, healthy human beings before our eyes. I tell the med students it's the most exciting transformation in medicine. How can we withhold this information?
Well, on that point, the good point of that is that many times what happens is the mindset for people is that, yes, these lifestyle factors are going to help me prevent some of these outcomes. But it's funny that when the outcomes occur, because of the consequences of the choices they may have made, they feel that to deal with the problem now, they have to do some kind of other intervention other than embracing the very conditions that were leading to the outcome of health. So you've always talked about this idea that not only is it about prevention, but the remarkable idea of reversibility. So just address that briefly, because I think people need to have that in their minds that, you know what? Even if you prevent, that's one thing. But even if you have developed this, it's not too late. You have this opportunity to go into tremendous reversibility. And talk a little bit about the evidence base for that too, Michael, if you can.
Oh, it's so profound. And I'm glad we're going to be touching on that. I'm devoting the rest of my medical career to try to repair this gaping deficit in medical education. I went through all medical school and practiced the majority of my career before anybody put the two words disease reversal in the same sentence for me. Why didn't somebody tell me that type 2 diabetes is a reversible disease? Why did somebody tell me that high blood pressure is a reversible disease? All we can do is manage these diseases, and And I've got a slide in my slide presentation for the med students. You want to heal these patients, or you just want to manage their chronic disease. Disease management is so unsatisfying. I hear my colleagues say, my patients are all getting fatter and sicker. They're all going to need stents. They're all going to need statins. They're all going to need bypass. That's right, doctor. You don't talk to them about what they're eating. That's exactly what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. As you said, these are reversible diseases. And I've got a slide presentation for the med students and residents called Mechanisms of Disease Reversal, how a plant-based diet reverses these diseases. And I talk about the biggest killers, atherosclerotic plaques, that most every cardiologist believes this is a relentlessly progressive disease. Once it starts, there's nothing you can do about it. They're all going to need a bypass. No, you can melt these plaques away with a diet based on whole plant foods. You run with all these dark green leafy vegetables through your digestive system. It keeps these antioxidants in your blood hour after hour. The antioxidants work into the walls of the arteries, neutralize the free radicals. The plaques start melting away, and the arteries open up again. It's an elegant, beautiful process. And our friend and colleague, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, has demonstrated this process predictably, reliably. Dr. Dean Ornish. So many of the cardiologists now, there's now a new generation of young cardiologists sprouting up everywhere that is using this routinely. We expect the angina to go away now. We expect these arteries to open up. And we can talk about all these various, especially inflammatory diseases, colitis and Crohn's disease in the intestine, lupus in the kidneys and immune system, inflammatory arthritis. They have different mechanisms, but it's ultimately the same mechanism, and it starts with stopping the ongoing insult. The meat, the dairy, the oils, the sugars, the processed food is a chemical onslaught, meal after meal after meal. Well, as soon as you adopt a whole food plant-based diet, the onslaught stops. When you stop hitting yourself in the head with a hammer, the headaches go away. And the same thing happens. Every cell in our body, certainly every tissue, every organ, has mechanisms to repair damage, to heal itself. But we've got to give it a chance. And that's what the beauty of a diet based on whole plant foods creates. If what you're running through your arteries every day is rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, that gives the chemical message to your tissues, shh, calm down, everything's okay, here's the antioxidants. These are the phytonutrients promote tissue repair. They promote membrane stability. They promote DNA repair. They give the body what it needs to have these repair systems shift into high gear. And so many of these diseases, as you say, they're reversible. And it's the most thrilling transformation in medicine to see patients. I tell the young docs, I'm the happiest doctor I know. My patients get healthy right before my eyes. And you could be the happiest doctor you know. You want to heal these patients, get real about what they're eating, because that's why they're sitting in front of you, doctor, overweight, hypertensive, diabetic, clogged up and inflamed. Get them on the healthy plant-based diet and watch them transform into truly healthy people. It's so exciting.
Yeah, you've always advocated a very revolutionary concept, and that is embracing common sense, which I don't, it's funny. I saw a poster the other day and it said, we're the only creatures, human beings, that need scientific studies to tell us that fruits and vegetables are healthy to eat, which is kind of funny. When I go in my backyard and I see this incredibly beautiful orange-red mango that's emitting this perfume falling to the ground, me opening it, putting it in my mouth and having this nectar just feed and embrace my blood supply in every part of my body. And you compare that to someone, slaughtering some animal, ripping the rib cage out, barbecuing that into black and brown. And where's, it's just common sense. But in light of that, I want to say something, because we have so many people that spend so much of their food dollar on supplementation because they're lost in this idea of deficiency, when in fact, what they're not realizing is that it's the excesses many times of nutrition, and these concentrated nutrients then come from eating processed and animal foods, whether it's heme iron or whatever. Can you address that concept for the viewers of this idea of these dangerous excesses that are really a big problem and a really big foundation in the causation of disease?
Absolutely, and you again, your questions are like a surgical scalpel. They're very precise here, and you have a good grasp on the problem with so many of these supplements. No other animal takes a concentrated bolt of niacin or pyridoxine or thiamine and floods their tissues with it. There's a saying in medicine, in all of science, in any complex biological system like the body, you can't do one thing. You can't do one thing, can't do just one thing. Anything you do sets off cascades of changes in every cell that really we have no idea what it all does in combination. And you get really concerned with these, especially these high potency multivitamins. And it's an artifact of our faith in science. I mean, those airplanes take off every time, and we have implicit faith. So we want to find that one vitamin we need, that one mineral we must be short of, and let's take a lot of it, and that's going to restore health. And the reason it's misguided was made very clear by our friend and colleague, Dr. Colin Campbell from Cornell University, who wrote this lovely book called Whole, W-H-O-L-E. And he says, stop focusing on these individual components. Yeah, they're in there. But the most important thing is the nature of the whole food stream moving through your tissues meal after meal. We don't eat niacin and thiamine, we eat food. And in that food are hundreds of thousands of phytochemicals that interact in their own magical way, that we have to respect that. And your job is I go back to the gorillas, my professors, their example, they don't take multivitamins, they just eat whole plant foods, and nature takes care of them, because in that whole food stream is enough powerful nutrients to make a gorilla, and all the great strength there. And the same lesson applies to us here. Now, we can talk about, there are some exceptions here. Vitamin B12, our natural vitamin B12 sources have kind of been taken away from us due to modern sanitation, which is, I've approved of that bargain that I don't want to be treating cases of cholera and typhoid fever. I'm okay with chlorinating the drinking supply of water, but it has cost us our natural B12 sources. So if you're on a whole food plant-based diet, once or twice a week, have something with vitamin B12 in it. But other than that, there's really no individual supplement that a plant-eating person needs to take. And I wonder, what's the effect of, especially the folks taking so many of these supplements. And just because you're a vegan or plant-based eater doesn't mean, you're going to live forever. And vegans get cancers, and they get some of these diseases. And I wonder sometimes, what role some of these vitamins, especially the high potency one, may have played in some of these diseases. And so, we can talk about that. But
when you look at whole foods, there are so many factors, cofactors, synergists. So when you think about it, there are many things that we know of, but many things that we continue to discover that we don't know of. So if you make a supplement, you can't put in what you don't know of. So I've always said that the supplements by definition are deficient, because there's no way they can embrace what whole foods are really containing. I'm sitting here with Dr. Michael Klaper. We're going to just take a few moments for a break to hear from our sponsor, the National Health Association. And now, to put a smile on the sponsors of the National Health Association, you're listening to the Health Science Podcast Show. I want to remind you to visit the National Health Association website, where you'll find incredible resources to support your healthy lifestyle, including plant-exclusive eating without added salt, oil, and sugar. Simply go to healthscience.org or nationalhealthassociation.org. Be sure to check out membership, which is $35 per year, for those living within the U.S. and $55 for those living outside the U.S. You'll be amazed at all the information and benefits you'll receive. As a member, you're kept up to date on the latest evidence-based tools for health promotion. You'll receive the incomparable quarterly magazine Health Science, a beautiful 40-page advertising-free publication mailed to your home or offices, loaded with articles, recipes, inspirational stories, and interviews with world leaders in the fields of personal health, plant-based nutrition, water-only fasting, animal rights, and environmental support. And you'll receive details about life-changing events, such as the 2023 NHA Conference set for June 23 to the 25th, 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio, which will be the NHA's 75th annual NHA Conference. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and now back to the show. Welcome back. You're on the Health Science Podcast with my wonderful guest, Dr. Michael Klaper. You know, there's been one of the hallmarks of the National Health Association is not only embracing this whole plant food lifestyle, but now it has gone the next level of even embracing it without the addition of salt, oil, and sugar, this SOS-free approach, which is kind of a next step in the evolution of applying this eating plan. Now, we know that when people are making a transition, you know, there are things that you want to help them make that transition a little bit easier. So we do have those, what we call analog foods, things that resemble meat and cheese and things of that nature. And then we have the additives with salt, oil, and sugar. In your perspective, how do you look at helping people make that transition and then imposing the ideas of not only plant-based or plant-exclusive, but now making these even additional modifications? How do you incorporate that in your own counseling and your own care?
Again, very perceptive question, you know, and we Homo sapiens, we're funny creatures. You know, you would think just, the gorillas know what to eat. I've never had a gorilla in the office saying, Doc, I can't keep my hands off these donuts. You know, they know what to eat here. But we human beings, you tell them eat whole plant foods. They don't. Many of them don't know how, but the motivation is not strong, at least to begin with. Although some of them, if they've just had a heart attack or they just that angina pain has just announced itself, sometimes they're all ears. Tell me what I got to do, Doc. But the majority of folks, we have to honor the fact that these are the processed foods, the sugary, salty foods. These are comfort foods. These are the foods we grew up eating. Mommy gave us, Daddy gave us. Every Sunday morning, Dad made pancakes with bacon and maple syrup, and I love that taste. I love the ritual that goes with it. And many folks, and if you're going to make me give that up, then I don't want to do any of this. And you can say, well, then you're on your own. But, you know, compassion, you want to heal these people, then you got to meet them where they're at. And some people may need to make a gradual transition. And so a lot of nutrition counseling is bargaining and negotiating. And, well, let's find a breakfast that you like. You like oatmeal? You like berries? Well, let's put oatmeal with berries. And you want a little bit of soy milk on that? Okay, fine. And let's have lunch. How about like soup and salad and a sandwich? Does that work for lunch? Well, we can make some healthy plant-based sandwiches. But if they would like a tofu on it, it's a processed food. But if it helps them make that transition, it's so much better than a cheeseburger. I'll certainly make that exchange. And later on, we can. Yeah,
and it brings them into the fold, which is something that I'm big, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because I think we're at a point that anyone we can get away from animal agriculture and animal food products, we'll come to that. You've made you've done so many things in your career. It's been an amazing career. And I know one of the hallmarks of this association was that from its get-go, from the beginning, it always embraced the idea of water-only fasting. And you had an opportunity about 8 years of your life to spend clinically at the True North Health Center, supervising, monitoring, and even being involved in some of the research related to water-only fasting. So the question I want to pose is, how did that experience, which is really quite different than anything you experienced in your medical training, how did that inform another way that you look at healthcare, another way that you look at what you're doing?
Oh my, another great question. You are correct. For 8 years, I was privileged to be an attending physician on the staff at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And there I saw the power of whole food plant-based nutrition. I saw plant-based nutrition done right to really reverse these diseases. So that alone was an education in itself. But part of their program is they incorporate water-only fasting, sometimes very short fast, 3 days, 5 days, but some folks with runaway high blood pressure, really active lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, we would supervise long fast, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4-week fast or longer, up to 40 days. And now it needs to be done right. You got to monitor these people, check their blood, check their kidney function with blood tests every week. Every morning we knock on their door. How are you doing? Check their blood pressure, check their pulse, make sure that they're healthy, not getting ready to vomit or not getting lightheaded when they stand up. There's an art to supervising a fast. But what I saw, when the body, when you think, oh, people who miss lunch think they're starving to death. But the truth is, the body has this amazing ability to shift into another gear after a day or two on water only. And these remarkable changes are unleashed. The body, when no more calories are coming in, no more carbohydrates or sugars to burn, and they're just running off their stored fats, the body gets very efficient. It doesn't want to waste energy on inflammation. And so we see inflammatory reactions go down. People, the people with hot joints by day 10, 20, gee, doc, I haven't been able to make a fist in years. And suddenly, that's better. We see, the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing, the psoriatic, the psoriasis, their skin starts to clear up. You see these wonderful changes, and inflammation subsides. But also, the body doesn't want to waste energy on running a cancer growth. That's a waste of energy if you're starving to death. And I'm not saying that all cancers magically melt away, but we've had people come in with lymphomas and did a long fast, and we saw we had a lady come in with a lymphoma. She had lymph nodes in her neck and groin the size of hen's eggs, and 28 days on water only. Boy, we watched those lymph nodes go right down. We wrote it up in the British Medical Journal. Again, this is all the body's ways of it. This has such wisdom and such restorative power that are unleashed when we stop flooding it with breakfast, lunch, and dinner 3 times a day. It frees the body up to get on with its own healing, and water-only fasting can do that. And it's something that I urge people, especially if you are battling with some chronic disease. The foundation is a whole food plant-based diet. I mean, you can't do a nice long fast, get all these wonderful changes, and then go back and start eating cheeseburgers and buffalo wings again. Everything comes back. But it's a jumping off place to a whole food plant-based diet. But it's a remarkable jetpack there to get started on your healing journey there. And so I have tremendous respect for water-only fasting, and I recommend it frequently to some of my patients who need a jump start on their health.
Yeah, let me shift gears just a little bit, Michael. Thank you for that. When we know that when people are sick and they're not well, your world becomes much more self-centered. You focus on things that you may fear, symptoms or things come up, and you're so concerned with your personal well-being and getting well that there's a self-centeredness to disease and the disease process and how you process it. But we know that when you're making choices, and this is very important, that the consequences of those choices we make in food and lifestyle are not confined to the borders of our own individual kitchens, the boundaries of our own plates. They have ramifications far outside of us in the world around us, the planet around us. So just talk to that idea that when you're embracing this plant-based situation, and you're now getting out of yourself, understanding the consequences so that your weight loss goals, your health goals are not just focused on choices that affect you, but you have a consciousness and awareness that, you know, what I choose to do is going to have an impact on something bigger than myself. Let's talk about that briefly, because the plant-based approach really brings that I'll use the word spirituality in this way. Not in a religious sense, but in the sense that spirituality means our concern with something bigger than ourselves, something outside of ourselves, concerns for something more than just my vested self-interest. Address, if you can, because I know you've spent a lot of time thinking and speaking about this, the impact of this way of living on now what are very catastrophic conditions around us: climate change, extinction, damages to the environment, and what we're going to leave behind for future generations. Give us a little bit of your insight on that whole process.
Oh, Frank, you're so beautiful. That question's so beautiful and so powerful and important. Again, walking into a fast food restaurant, ordering that burger and scarfing it down, and walking out, it's such a mindless act. You know, well, so what? It cost me $2.50. So I got you know. But what did that burger really cost to put it on your plate there? It turns out that large-scale industrial animal agriculture is the number one driving force of every single environmental disaster that is looming above us here. It's why we're cutting down the rainforest. The soils are eroding off corn and soybean fields throughout the Midwest to feed hundreds of millions of cows and pigs and chickens to turn them into fast foods. Most water is consumed by irrigating alfalfa, corn, and soybeans for animal agriculture. Most water is polluted with manure and pesticides and herbicides from growing animal products. It's got its tentacles, meat production, in every single environmental problem we face, including global warming. Every year on this planet, we cut the throats of 80 billion, with a B, 80 billion living creatures, cows, pigs, chickens, goats, ducks, etc. Every one of them breathing out carbon dioxide. Every one of them, the majority of them, belching out methane, eating grains that have been grown with ammonia fertilizers that outgas nitrous oxide. All these are greenhouse gases that lock in the Earth's heat and are warming the planet and contribute to the ice caps melting and our weather changes. Think of all the diesel fuel and gasoline now being burned to run generators, to generate electricity to keep meat cold, to power the trucks on the road filled with cows and pigs and chickens and tractors and fuel and fertilizer. You can't separate transportation out from meat production. It's all of a piece there. And it's no longer our world. It's the kids' world. We're stealing from the young people with our mindless production and consumption of animals. It's become so monstrous at this point. And I've got a slide in my presentation, and it doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is. If we don't have a habitable planet to live on, none of this matters here. It's not just about us, as your question implied. It's about we owe the animals, for one thing. These are living creatures who love their lives as much as we do. What right do we have to inflict death on such an industrial scale on these innocent creatures? But also, again, for the humans on this planet, we are making this planet unlivable for our lust for animal flesh. And the power and the beauty of changing to a plant-based diet, which would certainly make us individually healthier, is just that one single act, choosing the bean chili instead of the beef chili. That's the great sacrifice we're being asked to make, would change everything. We would need so much less land to feed the world's population. It would free up land to let the forests come back that we cleaved off to grow these animals. And as the trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air and turn it into solid wood. It reverses global warming. The soils would stabilize. The rivers would run clean again. The global warming would reverse. The planet would heal just like our bodies heal. The lights are flashing. Oh, Homo sapiens. If you want to become healthier as individuals, evolve your diet to a plant-based one. And as a species, you want to keep living on this planet, adopt a whole food plant-based diet. The red lights are flashing. It's the one thing we could do. That doesn't cost anything. People are wondering about the cost of environmental remediation. And as Dr. Richard Oppenlander in his wonderful book, Comfortably Unaware, tells us, and Glenn Mercer in his book, Food is Climate, you can put solar panels on everybody's house. You can give everybody an electric car. If we keep eating animal flesh and producing it like we are, none of that's going to make any difference. The only way at this point to save ourselves is become a true plant-eating species, honor our true plant-based nature, and everything will get healthier, us and the entire planet and our futures. And we owe it to the kids. I feel like running up to every young child I see and apologizing for what we've done to their future, and I owe them. At this point, I'm working for the kids and for the animals and the planet. At this point, they're my real employers, and I have boundless energy to keep doing what I'm doing, largely for them, and to get those wonderful animals out of those factory farm sheds where they are tonight by the hundreds of millions. We owe them full lives, just like we all want for ourselves. So eat plants.
And we really need to step up to the plate. I really feel that there's almost an epidemic of anxiety in the younger population as they look out and they're, confronting what looks like, every time they turn around, these pressures that look like impending catastrophes. And the fact that since 1970 to now, we have altered habitat so much by these forces that you've discussed, where we've lost 70% of animals on planet Earth. That level of extinction it just doesn't bode well for the caretaker that we need to be to provide for future generations and for the health of ourselves and this planet. So I really want to impress on people that a lot of times many doctors, they just kind of skirt around these issues, but these are very important issues for the choices we make. And no animal needs to be destroyed. No environment needs to be ransacked for your health and weight loss goals. So people selling high protein animal approaches or keto diet, it's not only that those things are faulty, but they're feeding a mindset that is so divorced from what we need to do now to survive. And there's no reason to do it, especially when the plant-based approach is the best solution to weight loss. It's the best solution to individual health along with planetary health. And I got to tell you something, Michael, I know you a long time, and I'm going to say this, you are one of the most kind, caring, and compassionate people and physicians I've ever met. And I really believe that is a byproduct of embracing a lifestyle that fosters that as a mindset, as something that actually gets into the sinew and tissue of who we are. I really believe it gets woven into the tapestry of our own brains and nervous systems. And those are the highest ideals of human behavior: empathy, compassion, and love. There's nothing more ideal high than that. And it's fed by this way of living and being and thinking and eating. And you've always walked that talk, you show it, and people that truly embrace that really show that. And I think it's a time where we need to have that as a foundation for our mindset and population, and stop feeding industries of death, destruction, and damage and violence. And it needs to change. And this is the way it changes. I want to shift a little bit because I want to touch on something that's your baby and your passion right now, and that's moving medicine forward. And I want to really get your idea and the whys and wherefores of why this is so important. And this initiative with Plant Pure Communities about the medical education, this nutrition medical education for medical students. And I got to think that, you're catching them maybe young enough and it's cool. But I mean, years ago, one of the famous Scottish psychiatrists, R.D. Laing, used to talk about the discipline of unlearning. And many times when you're in systems like medical education, there's a lot to unlearn, as you know. So how does that manifest to you as you get yourself kind of like a Trojan horse into those communities, and you've got these professors probably standing in the back of the room rolling their eyes, and you got medical students so excited because someone's finally telling them that they can get people well and not just hold their hands while they go down this rabbit hole of disease and damage. Talk to me about that whole passion for this project of yours, this new initiative.
Oh, thank you, Frank. As you said, since I've been a plant-based physician and seeing this phenomenon of disease reversal, it's the most powerful tool. When you're a young student, boy, you want those medical tools. You want to see that pneumonia clear with the antibiotics. You want to see that edema from heart failure go down with the diuretics. You wanted those tools in your tool belt. Well, it turns out that a diet on whole plant foods is the most powerful disease reversion tool these students will ever encounter and utilize. And I'm thinking, somebody ought to be telling the student. Why didn't somebody tell me this when I was in med school? Somebody ought to be telling these students, especially the early ones, first, second, third year, before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brain and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment. Somebody ought to be telling them. And the little voice on my shoulder says, "How about you, doc?" And, what one person can do, I realized that my noble profession has been one of the biggest bottlenecks to preventing our society from making this transition to a plant-based diet. What if every doctor recommended as part of every visit, by the way, you really ought to be eating a whole food plant-based diet like I eat, and you want to get rid of your high blood pressure? Here, see this video and adopt a whole food plant-based diet. Go see the plant-based dietitian down the hall. She'll show you what to eat. You come back and see me in a month and see if you're not leaner and healthier. That's how medicine should be practiced in the 21st century. And I realized that someone's got to put that template in the young student's head. And so I started going to the nation's medical schools, and there are, in every med school class now, there's always 10, 20, 30 students who've seen films like Forks Over Knives, What the Health, Game Changers. The light's on in many of these students' heads, but they really need a senior experienced physician to stand in front of them and say, "You're not crazy. This is the truth of real healing. And here is how a plant-based diet reverses these diseases. And here's how you can institute it in your medical practice, no matter what specialty you're in. Internal medicine, family practice, pediatrics, radiology, they're all seeing diet-based diseases, and they all need to know the power of a plant-based diet. So to facilitate my efforts to get this message out to the medical students, we've established a nonprofit initiative called Moving Medicine Forward. We had been under the 501c3 umbrella, the nonprofit umbrella of Nelson Campbell's Plant Pure Communities, for whom I will always be grateful. But now we are setting off on our own, and Moving Medicine Forward is now getting its own 501c3 designations. We should have it over the next several weeks, and people will be able to support us directly, because it takes money to run the websites and go to lectures, and everything costs money these days. But people can support us if they are interested. I'm sure you'll have the website there, but go to my website, drklaper.com, and you will see Moving Medicine Forward. Just click on it. You can read about what we're doing and how you can support us. But it's for whatever energy I have left, however many years, I want to devote it to reach as many of these students as possible, to create a new generation of nutritionally aware physicians and their colleagues. The dentists need to know about this, the nurses, the physical therapists, the pharmacists. They all are touched by the standard American diet. They all would transform their practices into much more satisfying ones if they know about the power of plant-based diets. So we're going to be trying Moving Medicine Forward, and part and parcel of that is to get the plant-based nutrition knowledge into the standard medical curriculum. I shouldn't have to be doing this. It should be taught in all 4 years of medical school. And so we're working with the National Board of Medical Examiners to get questions on the national board exam, and to get, we're working with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, who are open to plant-based nutrition. They are starting to get their residency programs into medical schools and postgraduate medical education. And we want that plant-based message front front and center in their teaching. And so I'm working with those folks to get the plant-based message out. So there's a lot to do to move medicine forward, but as you said, it's my passion. It's the only game in town for me, and with the gifts that I've been given. So if anyone wants to help us, again, go to my website.
Michael, has there been any unique roadblocks to that as you go into the schools? And what do you have to overcome? Because you're dealing with the inertia of a system that, as we've talked, has been doing things the same way for a very long time. And now here you come as pariah, and you're ready to help people see things in a different way. So what have you encountered as blocks or obstacles to what you're doing?
Indeed, as you said, when I go to the med schools, before COVID, it was easy to get hundreds of med students in one auditorium. Now they're a little reluctant to do that, but when I can meet them, even by Zoom, there's, as you said, there's always a few older professors in the back with arms folded and clucking their tongues. And, well, what about this and what about that? And this will never work. My patients will never do this. And because they want to keep doing things the same old way. And they come up to me and say, Doc, I don't know anything about nutrition. These are the professors. I don't know anything about nutrition. It's a sissy science. It's not real medicine. And I don't have time to do this counseling. I don't get paid for doing this counseling. And so it's California woo-woo stuff. And so they're very dismissive. And it's so sad because it's not fringe stuff. It's the most powerful healing tool they'll ever get. I want to shake them and say, this powerful tool is right in front of you. Pick it up and use it. And so that's why we've been going to the students directly. I usually don't even, I don't knock on the door of the administration office. They don't want to hear about this. And they're getting too much money from the pharmaceutical companies. And the old teachings are so firmly entrenched. You need meat and protein every day. That's still firmly entrenched there. But as I said, the students are open to it. They've seen films, they've read books, and their own Eugene, my sister-in-law, adopted a plant-based diet. She lost all this weight and got rid of her diabetes, and it's starting to infiltrate into the society. They say you can't keep a hat pin in a cloth bag for very long. The point comes out. And that's what's happening with the truth of this powerful healing technique. So I'm trying to fan the flames as much as possible with a bottom-up revolution, going to those young students directly. And I think it's having an effect. It's getting more and more widely accepted. So I'm going to keep on keeping on.
I'm here with the remarkable Dr. Michael Klaper. And Dr. Klaper, before we break, do you have any final words of wisdom or advice you'd like to share with the people out here?
Yes, despair not. This is no time for despair. It's no time for inaction. We each can do something. Educate yourself about this. If you've not seen films like Forks Over Knives or Cowspiracy, see those films. There's a wonderful little book, Food is Climate by Glenn Mercer. He, in 60 pages, will give you the truth of what our animal-based diet is doing to the planet. Educate yourself and transition your own diet to whole food plant-based. Now, if this is a NHA audience here, most of you folks are already on that train. And then do what you can do to get the word out. Be a good example. And even in your community, give potlucks once a month, have people bring in recipes, pass out leaflets, get on a Facebook page. There's people around in your community and around the world waking up to this truth. Use your voice, use your example. Make this a commonplace, make it accepted in our society. We need to make meat eating as uncool as cigarette smoking and wearing fur coats these days. Meat eating needs to be in that dustbin of history as well, along with those activities. So be a good example. Despair not. We owe the kids, we owe the animals, we owe the planet. Do what you can do. Do what you can where you are with what you got. And if we all do that, it's going to get better.
I want to thank Dr. Michael Klaper, my guest today, for sharing his time, his wisdom, his experience with us. And I truly encourage you, I urge you to follow him at the website information that he gave you, providing support for moving medicine forward if you can. The sites and the places where you can find him online will be in the notes of the show. And I also want to thank the people that have tuned in today. And because without you, I couldn't do what I do. We couldn't do this. I really want to thank you on behalf of the National Health Association for being part of this active community. I'm Dr. Frank Sabatino, the host of the Health Science Podcast, and I look forward to seeing you at the next show. You've been listening to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association. Thank you for joining us today and for your commitment to evidence-based health science that backs a whole food, plant-exclusive lifestyle and contributes to the well-being of all people, animals, and our environment. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino. Be sure to leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next show.